Which celebrity is actually a lot smarter than people think? Story 1. Peter Weller, MPhing RoboCop, has his PhD from UCLA and is a well-regarded and published historian. Really cool to hear his story on Marc Maron recently. Story 2. Bridget Mendler. After her Disney era ended and her music career fizzled out, she got an MS from MIT, a JD from Harvard Law, and she co-founded and currently serves as CEO of a multi-million-dollar space startup called Northwood Space, focused on ground-level data connectivity and resilience for space missions. Story 3. Chris Christopherson. Graduated summa cum laude and PBK from Pomona College with a degree in literature. He then went on to be a Rhodes Scholar and got his B.Phil from Oxford, studied in Merton College. He was an officer in the Army and an Army Ranger after that, made it to the rank of captain. He did all that before he even started his music career. Answer. He had published multiple essays in The Atlantic while an undergrad. He let his singing career be promoted while he was at Oxford because he thought it would help him develop his career as a novelist. Also, while he was a captain in the Army, he taught at West Point. Oh, and to pay for his second child's medical bills, he took a job as a helicopter pilot to ferry workers on and off of oil rigs. Dude was good at everything he tried, and he tried a lot. Story 4. Dolph Lundgren holds a master's degree in chemical engineering and was awarded a Fulbright scholarship to study at MIT. Story 5. Ray Tom Magliozzi, a.k.a. Click and Clack the Car Talk brothers. Some people might think they're just a couple of funny mechanics with a radio show. They both graduated from MIT with STEM degrees and are well-versed in seemingly everything edit. You can listen to old Car Talk episodes via NPR podcasts. Their NPR premium platform will even be taking new questions for Ray, though Tom has passed. Answer. No, you're getting the lore wrong, and it's the funniest part. They are both down home through and through Cambridge kids, and did very well in school. Tom wanted to study writing, but got a full ride to MIT. He ended up with an English degree from MIT. He's got all sorts of jokes about showing up to his upper-level classes, and he's the only kid who signed up for the class. Story 6. Boss Hogg, a.k.a. Sorrel Book, on the Dukes of Hazzard book, was fluent in English, French, Japanese, Spanish, Russian, and Italian. He said that he also fussed with a half-dozen other languages such as Arabic, Mandarin, Chinese, Dutch, Persian, Polish, and Swedish. Answer. That man was a genius. There was an interview with Rick Hurst, Cletus, who said that Sorrel was reading his lines with another actor who was playing a villain, and both were fluent in Japanese, so they were reading them in Japanese and would just nod at Rick when it was his line. Much of Sorrel and James Best, Roscoe, performance was improv. Fabulous actors who found a ton of humor in those roles. Story 7. Dexter Holland, frontman for The Offspring. Not only is he a great musician, he also holds a PhD in molecular biology. Story 8. Ken Jeong. It's surprising how many people forget he's a doctor, since he's always telling jokes and some think it's just a running joke. Answer. My mom actually worked with him in the hospital. When they would throw work parties, he would be the MC cracking jokes. My mom loves seeing him on TV. It brings her so much joy seeing this doctor she used to work with do such silly things, especially the first thing she saw him in, The Hangover. Imagine how hilarious that scene was for us. Now imagine it for my mom who knew him as a doctor. Story 9. Dolly Parton. People see the big hair and rhinestones, but she's a sharp businesswoman, a prolific songwriter, and started a literacy foundation that's given out over 200 million books. Answer. I once lost a friendship, no big loss, due to an argument that started with me praising Dolly Parton for being the kind of millionaire I respect, who uses her fortune for charities that she gives so much she would actually be a billionaire if not for them. My friend insisted there's no such thing as a good charity, that they're all tax write-offs, and he has no respect for Dolly Parton. He can go fudge himself. Dolly is queen. Story 10. Ice Cube has a degree in architectural drafting that he got as a backup plan in case NWA didn't work out. A few years ago, he curated a tour of the Eames house. Story 11. Jennifer Tilly and Jennifer Coolidge. They always play someone much, much dumber than they really are. Story 12. Terry Hatcher studied mathematics and engineering, and her father was a nuclear physicist and electrical engineer. Her mother was a computer programmer. Story 13. James Cameron. When the Titan debacle happened, he was asked a lot about deep ocean exploration. The general reaction was, since when is he an expert? He became an expert by funding his own dives and becoming close with Robert Ballard. Answer. Cameron also designed and built the Deep Sea Challenger submersible himself, then used it for his historic solo dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He's fascinating to me because he's one of those people who pushes technological boundaries whenever what he wants to do doesn't already exist. Like, before shooting The Abyss, he wanted the actors to wear specific working diving helmets that would show their faces better for the camera. Those helmets didn't exist at the time, so he casually created and produced them. He's also invented or co-invented tools like head rigs for performance capture, the Fusion camera system, real-time virtual camera tech, an underwater propeller-driven dolly for underwater filming, and contributed to the tech that led to the volume virtual set technology used in so much of ILM, etc. Story 14. Jeff "Skunk" Baxter, famously known for his stints playing guitar in Steely Dan, the Doobie Brothers, and as a session player for basically everyone. He's a music legend and is in the rock and roll HOF. But since the 90s, he's also been regarded as one of the leading authorities on missile defense systems. He's consulted for the Pentagon, Congress, and NASA. Story 15. Tom Scholz of Boston, engineering degree from MIT, and created his own guitar sound, or something like that. Too lazy to check. Story 16. Ina Garten, barefoot Contessa of crisp Oxford shirts and fabulous dinner parties on the Food Network, has an MBA from George Washington University and worked on national nuclear budget policy. Story 17. Jodie Foster speaks 4 languages fluently, attended the Lycée, graduated Yale with honors with a degree in African American literature, dubs her own French in movies. Story 18. Bridget Mendler holds a PhD from MIT and a Juris Doctor from Harvard. She co-founded Northwood Space, a satellite data startup, in 2023. Story 19. 2 of the Queen band members are physicists. There are also some writers for Futurama who are also physicists. Lisa Kudrow, the dumb one on a small show called Friends, is a biologist. Answer. 2 of the Queen band members are still practicing theoretical physicists. LOL. Bit of fact inflation there. One of them, Brian, completed his PhD in astrophysics, very different field from theoretical, after a 30-year gap in 2007. That was in large part because research his particular field of inquiry, interplanetary dust, had not advanced much in the intervening decades. Afyak, aside from his thesis, he's a co-author on 1 peer-reviewed paper and 1 book. Retired now. No doubt he's a very intelligent person, as were the whole band, all of whom studied science, all but Freddie. Got science degrees. Mercury transferred to art school and got his degree in graphic design. Story 20. Dolph Lundgren, actor, a few degrees in science. Dexter Holland, singer in Offspring, another one with a degree in science. PhD in molecular science from USC. Story 21. Natalie Portman. She's often praised for her beauty or acting, but people forget she graduated from Harvard with a degree in psychology. She's published research in scientific journals and speaks multiple languages. She's also incredibly socially aware and articulate in interviews, brain, and talent. Answer. She also has an Erdsbacon number of 7, which is the sum of connections of publications between mathematician Paul Erds and movies with Kevin Bacon. The next lowest is 6, Kirsten Stewart, Carl Sagan, Richard Feynman, Stephen Hawking, and 5, which is held by Dave Bayer, who was the mathematician who was also the stunt hand for Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. Story 22. Shaq, while not somebody I would peg as naturally intelligent, look up his thoughts on saving money on gas, made a career out of taking the serious advice of those more experienced than him. There are a lot of professional athletes that blow through their money so quickly, but Shaq is a master marketer and a highly successful investor. He has expressed to his adult children that he will only share his wealth with them in terms of paying for their education and investing in their business endeavors only after they earn 2 degrees. He also earned his doctorate in education in 2012. Edit A. Quick anecdote about Shaq's investing prowess. A few years ago, he was frustrated with the high cost of installing security cameras in his home and found an early version of a Ring camera on a shelf in Best Buy. He was so impressed with how easy it was to use it. He immediately met with the CEO and became an early investor. A year later, Ring was sold to Amazon for $1 billion. Another wealthy individual might have just ate the high expense of standard home security, but Shaq found a way to save money and profit. Story 23. John Cena. I thought, and here my prejudice is on display, that he was just a lunk. Then I saw him interviewed and he turned out to be well-spoken, thoughtful, humble, and quite interesting. Answer. Came here to mention Alan Ritchson. I feel that people think of him as just a ripped-up lunkhead, but when I've heard him speak, read his thoughts, he seems like a really thoughtful, empathetic, open-minded guy. He doesn't have a pile of PhDs like Winnie Cooper, Bialik, or Lundgren. But it seems like he's really observant and thoughtful about the world in a really refreshing way. Edit. Specifically, some of his statements make it seem that he's very cognizant of the fact that he's a huge, manly man tough guy during what's often seen as a crisis of masculinity, specifically for young men. And he recognizes that he needs to be very aware of that and thoughtful about what he says, as he potentially holds an outsized influence in a world that's full of Tate brothers and Liver Kings as role models for young dudes, and can make that a positive one or not. It's cool. Story 24. Dolph Lundgren got a bachelor's in chemical engineering and was accepted into MIT before he decided to pursue acting. Story 25. Lisa Kudrow. She will forever be the wonderfully eccentric Phoebe Buffay to millions, but she has a Bachelor of Science degree in psychobiology and was working with her father on clinical research into headaches before she made it big in acting. Story 26. There was an article out recently, I think it was from ESPN, about a bunch of NFL players and their reading habits, and so many of the guys they interviewed or looked at seemed to love philosophy. I don't like the sport very much. I only watch when my team is playing, and I call it the meathead game. But for me, at least, it's hard to remember sometimes that these are actual people who are a lot smarter than they look, Smashing into guys for a living does not equal stupid edit. Here's the article in question. What are NFL players reading this summer? ESPN. Answer: they fall on a bell curve just like the rest of us. A tiny amount are brilliant, a tiny amount are stupid. Most are just normal people who also happen to be absurdly athletic. That said, the average pro athlete comes from an upper-middle-class family these days. That means they've likely had access to better schools and educational resources throughout their lives. The money that allows that also allows the camps, coaches, and summer AAU leagues these guys play in all the time when they're younger. Story 27. Rowan Atkinson. He has an MSc degree in electrical engineering and once flew a private plane when his pilot suddenly fainted at the wheel. Story 28. Danica McKellar, aka Winnie Cooper, aka Lifetime Christmas Movies, so she's probably just some washed-up celebrity, right? No, she earned a PhD in mathematics from the University of Chicago in 2005. She's a New York Times best-selling author of math books aimed at inspiring young people, particularly girls, in mathematics, and is still an absolute babe. Story 29. Old school. Cary Grant was an excellent mind-like-a-steel trap investor and businessman. He devoted more time to business interest in later years and served on several corporate boards, actively participating, not just looking pretty. Story 30. Andy Richter. He did a couple of appearances on Celebrity Jeopardy and absolutely eliminated. He made Wolf Blitzer look foolish. Story 31. Matt Damon. He attended Harvard but dropped out to pursue his acting career. Or did he attend Harvard? Story 32. Jessica Alba. She made her career basically being eye candy in movies, but she used her money and media presence to build and grow a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Story 33. So weird, too, see both Wayne Rooney and Jose Mourinho mentioned on this thread. I mean, technically, they are celebrities, but never would have thought to see either of them mentioned for a question like this, let alone both of them. Story 34. Adam Sandler. Dude's made millions, brought all of his friends along with him, stayed out of the drama of Hollywood, and just plays ball anywhere, anytime, 'cause he loves hoopin'. Gotta love a guy that stays true, even if I don't care to watch his movies. Story 35. Natalie Portman. People know her as an actress, but many don't realize she has a psychology degree from Harvard and has even published in scientific journals. She's incredibly articulate and thoughtful, and you can tell she's genuinely intelligent beyond her acting career. Story 36. I don't particularly like him, but Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he sold Mint Mobile for $1.35 billion to T-Mobile, his share 330 EMIR, and the whole Wrexham branding merchandising streaming. The guy can't be the dummy he pretends to be. Story 37. Keanu Reeves was more insightful than I expected when David Letterman, edit Stephen Colbert, asked him, "What do you think happens after we die?" He answered, "I think those who love us will miss us." Story 38. Heather Graham is a fan of Chekhov and Dostoevsky's work and was a literature major. She's mostly been cast in dumb sexpot roles, but she has pretty good taste in books. Story 39. Ben Affleck. He was asked to leave in some casinos because he learned how to count cards at poker. And yes, casinos can kick you out for being too good. That's how the house always wins. Also, Mickey Rourke. He's written a few screenplays that aren't bad at all, and according to him, he also rewrote the dialogue in The Wrestler. Story 40. Norm Macdonald, RIP, graduated high school at 14. He always pretended to be way less intelligent than he actually was. Story 41. Dolph Lundgren. People know him as Ivan Drago, but he has a master's in chemical engineering and even won a Fulbright scholarship before Hollywood. Story 42. Paris Hilton. She has admitted the dumb blonde persona she adopted was a way to cope and get through life after her childhood trauma. She's apparently actually pretty well-spoken, has business acumen, and does advocacy work. She fights against those camps boarding schools like she was sent to, where your parents pay to have you basically kidnapped and forced to be there. It's been a while since I read into this, so I could have some details wrong. Story 43. Natalie Portman. Harvard grad, speaks multiple languages, published in scientific journals, and still played Thor's love interest like a champ. Just learned that a week ago XD. Story 44. Mike Judge graduated with a degree in physics from UC San Diego. This is the same guy who created Beavis and Butthead. Story 45. ITT. A lot of people who are widely known to be very smart. I want to discover that Mr. Blobby and Pauly D actually designed the Large Hadron Collider. Story 46. Hedy Lamarr developed the patent that became the basis for Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth, kinda leagues above speaking multiple languages or having a science degree. Story 47. I know the expected answers are celebrities with academia, but I'm gonna give it to Paris Hilton. Not because she's super smart, but she milked appearing to look really dumb on camera, and everyone ate it all up. She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd go to the bathroom at the airport and bring a few outfits, change and come out, then change and come out and look annoyed, then do it again. Then the media would eat up those paparazzi photos for like a month or two. She knew how to stay in the spotlight, birthed the Kardashians and everyone else who doesn't deserve to be famous and also pretty. Much invented Instagram culture. In a way, most influencers are just cosplaying her lifestyle. She revolutionized celebrity branding, reality television, and social media influencing. Basically being famous with no apparent talent. She made that a thing. But also she diversified and has a multi-billion-dollar company. So she's not the smartest on the list, but the public disparity between her ditzy persona's intelligence and her behind-the-scenes intelligence deserves a mention. Story 48. Hedy Lamarr first to portray the female climax. Also a spy and developer of radio guidance technology and that Hollywood stuff. Story 49. I believe Natalie Portman has a degree in mathematics and has several published proofs she's worked in. Story 50. I heard that Keha got a perfect score on the SATs. Now, I did very well myself. Not perfect, so I know it doesn't mean you're an absolute genius if you get a perfect score. But it does mean she's a lot smarter than the brain-dead druggy club girl she portrays herself as. Story 51. Lots of good answers with folks who have degrees in physics and whatnot. I'm going to throw out some names of folks that from afar just seem really savvy. Rihanna. I don't think people think she's dumb, but she's also not really cited as a particular smart person in pop culture. But let's break it down. She comes on the scene and does the typical young pop star bullshit, but just as she was sort of fading into obscurity, revamped with Good Girl Gone Bad, then basically dominated the next 10 years, 2007 to 2016 with Auntie. She has the third most cumulative weeks at one trailing, just Mariah. Carrie and Elvis, and the second most won songs for a female artist, 14 v. Mariah Carey's 19, and fourth most won songs of all time, behind the Beatles, Mariah, Elvis. She was dominating the charts and right in the middle launched her fashion line Fenty and a non-profit. Then, just as someone could argue she was reaching saturation with music, effectively left music pretty much entirely and hasn't dropped an album in almost a decade. Her entire run was from 2005 to 2016, 11 years. She's estimated to have a net worth of $1.7 billion. Shaq, one of the most dominant players in NBA history, but never reached the endorsement level that someone like Jordan did. He didn't have a world-altering shoe or apparel deal, and just did typical endorsement spots like Icy Hot and Old Spice. While he was winning championships in LA, he was also working on finishing his bachelor's and even got an MBA. A year after retiring, he accomplished a PhD. As a young player, he was investing in stocks and bonds, even being an early investor into Google. He also owns several franchises and small business like car washes. His estimated net worth is around $500 million. Story 52. Lisa Kudrow, best known for playing ditzy Phoebe in Friends, has a bachelor's degree of science in psychobiology from Vassar. Story 53. David Duchovny. His wiki bio for education. He attended the Collegiate School for Boys in Upper West Side, Manhattan, where he was a classmate of John F. Kennedy Jr., from which he graduated as head boy in 1978. He then attended Princeton University, where he graduated Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude in 1982 with an AB in English literature. He was a member of Charter Club, one of the university's eating clubs. In 1982, his poetry received an honorable mention for a college prize from the Academy of American Poets. The title of his senior thesis was The Schizophrenic. Critique of Pure Reason in Beckett's early novels. He earned a Master of Arts in English Literature from Yale University and subsequently began work on a PhD that remains unfinished. The title of his uncompleted doctoral thesis is Magic and Technology in Contemporary Fiction and Poetry. Story 54. Look up Hedy Lamarr, an actress in the 40s and 50s. She developed a guidance system for torpedoes during the war. Story 55. Lisa Kudrow, Phoebe in Friends, apparently has an IQ of 154. She graduated with a degree in biology from Vassar College and worked in medical research before her acting career. Story 56. Hedy Lamarr. Everyone knew her as a glamorous movie star, but she literally helped invent the tech that made Wi-Fi and Bluetooth possible. Total badass who was way smarter than people gave her credit for. Story 57. Margot Robbie. I worked with her before she was famous. She did an international baccalaureate high school program in Australia. She had been deciding between going into law or business when she auditioned for the soap opera Neighbours and booked it, which she said had been her first real audition ever. It's probably why her production company has been so successful. Story 58. Hedy Lamarr starred in the movie Ecstasy in 1933 with her tits out. She also invented frequency hopping, which is still used in modern Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Story 59. Jane Mansfield played a ditz, but she spoke multiple languages and played classical piano and violin. Story 60. Jaylen Brown, star forward for the Boston Celtics, was valedictorian of his high school grad class and claimed to be captain of the chess team, was accepted to Harvard, went to Cal instead for basketball opportunities, had a 4.0 GPA in the 1 year he studied there, and while at Cal took a master's level course in sport education. Story 61. Just because people made money doesn't make them smart. Half these upvoted people made good investments. Doesn't make them smart. Story 62. Jennifer Tilly. Talks like an airhead, looks like an airhead, played a lot of airheads. Brilliant and incredibly sharp professional poker player. Story 63. Surprise, no one has mentioned Ashton Kutcher, almost complete his biochemical engineering degree, but dropped out to pursue acting modeling. Story 64. Going old school here, Hedy Lamarr co-invented the methodology of spread spectrum, RF, and frequency hopping during WWDC. These methods would eventually be used in things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Story 65. Mayim Bialik. She has a PhD in neuroscience. When she was on BBT, she was a neurobiologist, so basically what she went to school for IRL. Always found that cool. Story 66. Hedy Lamarr was an accomplished mathematician and inventor after her career as an A-list Hollywood star. Her work on anti-jamming technology for torpedoes led the way for Wi-Fi and GPS. She is arguably the mother of the internet. Amazing woman. Story 67. Reese Witherspoon. Her book club is how she gauges popularity of novels that her production company has first dibs on the rights for. It's incredibly smart, and her book club has some good picks on it. Story 68. Tom Morello, any member of RATM, really? A lot of folks just know them for loud, angry music. Tom Morello graduated from Harvard with honors. The band even has a reading list, which I recommend checking out. Story 69. Viggo Mortensen. Not from purely educational qualifications. The man is a true polyglot and is fluent, conversationally competent in like 8 languages. Story 70. Peter Garrett, the giant, shaved-headed, lurching activist, lead singer and main songwriter of Midnight Oil, graduated from law school. The band took a long hiatus, during which he was elected to the Australian Parliament on behalf of the Labour Party, and served twice in the cabinet as Minister for the Environment, Heritage and the Arts, and later as Minister for School Education, Early Childhood and Youth. And then he returned to the stage, somewhat disappointed and passionate as ever. I saw them live on their first major tour after reuniting. Story 71. Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, has a MSc in Electrical Engineering. EE is easily top 3 most difficult engineering you can get into. Story 72. Despite the fact that she played a somewhat flaky character on Friends, her castmates were all unanimous about the fact that Lisa Kudrow was the smartest of them. Her father was a doctor who specialized in headache research, and she initially intended to follow in his.